Alrighty team, if you are hunting for a gimbal that won't blow your budget out, but will still deliver some pretty smooth shots, the Zhiyun Weebill 3E could be the one. Or maybe not. So I've been putting it through its paces for the last few months, and trust me, there are a few curveballs you want to hear about before you buy this thing. Now real quick, if you are new to gimbals and you're sitting there wondering like, why do I even need a gimbal? I get it, it can be a little bit confusing. So if you've ever cringed at really shaky footage from a shoot, a gimbal is going to be your cheat code to get like really smooth shots, whether you're running on a boat, like hanging out a car, doesn't really matter. Something like the Weebill 3E is just going to make your life so much easier. Now, firstly, this thing is tiny, weighing in at just 990 grams. It honestly kind of feels like a toy, but don't let that fool you. It's got a lot of power in these motors, that's for sure. So let's start at the bottom. We have a standard tripod base plate. Now I just quickly chucked this in my bag and you can see that it actually already has a scratch on the screen. I've never had a problem with the screens on these before. Maybe something very sharp hit it and scratched it, but I've never actually had a problem with this before. So maybe it's a weaker screen, not sure, but just be aware of that. We've got the mode button, the record button, and the joystick here, which are in a pretty good position when you are actually using this. Around the front, we have the adjustment wheel and the trigger. Now these are fully customizable as well, which is really good since they updated to that new algorithm. We have a USB port on the side to charge it. This has a inbuilt battery in the handle, power button, menu button, and the menu adjuster that also clicks in as a button as well. You're not going to get a ton of adjustment out of this as you would with some of the more professional gimbals, but it does have enough to kind of get you through most of the stuff, right? So you've got your adjustment on this main one here. So you can move your camera left and right on this adjustment. And I've kind of started doing this to avoid having to adjust this arm here, which I still prefer to have adjustment on this arm, but this does a pretty good job as well. And you do have a lot of adjustment. Like you can see how far you can actually get this out. So if you were using this with like a Blackmagic camera or something, not sure if it is compatible, but you do get a lot of width on this as well. So this will be super handy if you have a bit of a wider camera. Now on this as well, you will notice that it's kind of a bit of a weird design. So we've got this little bit on the side, which at first I was very unsure of what this actually was. Like I had no idea. And then we actually realized that it was to mount the camera vertically. So this will allow you to mount the camera vertically. The only problem I found with this is that there's like no room between here and here. And this thing sticks out a lot. So that is going to become a problem if you do have a bigger camera because you can't adjust this. This will just get in the way, which is not ideal at all.
All right, so we're hanging out on location, just waiting for the car to come for the next shot. But testing out the Weebill 3E, and we're trying to figure out how this vertical mount works. And if I try to mount this, it hits on the body. And this is, we've actually offset this on the bottom as well, and it still hits. So is this camera too big for this? But it's like, it's such a small camera. I'm just so confused by this gimbal. Like normal is fine, but the vertical mount just seems to have a lot of problems that maybe they haven't thought about. Maybe I'm just doing it wrong, but I need a bit of testing to figure it out.
Now the new vertical mount sounds cool in theory, but I am not a fan of it at all. I would rather use something that's on like the Weebill 3 or the Crane 4 where the arm fully detaches rather than just having the little plate detach. Because it's just like really awkward and it definitely limits the cameras and the options or the lenses that you can use with this setup.
So moving around here, you have your standard up and down adjustment as well. There's not a lot of adjustment on this one, but it is enough. It looks like I've used the same design that they used to use with the light. I'm not sure if there is a version with a light or not, but this one definitely doesn't have a light. And then if we sneak in behind here, we can just see it. There is a port to connect your camera to, so you don't have to get your wires all tangled up, but this is how you connect your camera to the gimbal itself. Like I said, on this back arm, there is no adjustment for this arm. You'll have to do all the adjustment through this plate here. And then at the bottom, we have quite a bit of adjustment down here as well. So I've been playing around with this and there actually is plenty of adjustment. You can see I've pretty much almost maxed it out using the FX30. But there is quite a bit of adjustment on here as well.
Now it's compatible with a ton of full frame cameras. What I'll do is I'll leave a link down below so you can check out the full compatibility list to see if your camera and lens combo is actually going to work with this system.
Now, when I tested it out first, it wasn't as smooth as say like, you know, Crane 4 or a Weebill 3. And there are some little jerks at the start of movements, which you can't fully tweak out with the settings. But I mean, for the price, like I am not complaining. Like this thing is so good.
So the factory settings straight out of the box aren't the best and we can make it a bit smoother. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like factory out of the box. And we're gonna make a few tweaks to it here and there. And we can show you what the difference is gonna be. But the big difference is gonna be the way you walk with this gimbal. So if you just walk like normal, you're gonna get a lot of bobbing. Whereas if you do it properly, then you actually get a much better shot out of this. All right, so first things first, go one-handed, walking normally. This is the kind of shot you're gonna get. Let's go back, one-handed, not really like paying too much attention to it. Honestly, it still looks pretty good considering this is straight out of the box. Now let's actually go put a bit of effort into it and put a bit of a ninja walk and actually try make it smooth and we'll see what the difference is. You can see there's that little jerk at the start, which is really, really hard to avoid on this gimbal, unfortunately. See how smooth this is. And back out. Now, if I was you and I was gonna be using this, the main setting I would be adjusting is the smoothness. So if you go into the menu and go into advanced, go down to smooth. So it's set to 100 by default. We wanna set everything to 200, which is the max that it'll go. It does take a little bit to get there. So this is a one-handed walk, not really trying that hard. Let's see what the shot looks like. Then on the way back out. Now, because I want a wider lens, you'll be able to stabilize this really easy and get rid of all those little micro jerks and stuff. This is going to be with a ninja walk. Already on the little screen anyway, it feels like it's much smoother. Wait, back out. That could just be me thinking that. Keep forgetting that's connected via Bluetooth. That Bluetooth shutter is actually a really handy feature, especially when you're like underslung like this and you want to do one-handed. Very, very handy feature. So that's the main thing that I would change to make your shots a little bit smoother. But the main thing to keep in mind is that this is a budget gimbal. So you're not going to get the performance of like a $700, $800, $900 gimbal in something like this. It's designed to just kind of like throw in there, get you like 90% of the way there, and then use a bit of software to kind of get you the final bit. But definitely the main thing that's going to help you with any sort of gimbal is going to be the way you walk, which is that kind of like bent knees, go from heel to toe, and that's just going to smooth everything out and get rid of a lot of those bobs that you see in a lot of gimbal shots. Now we do also have vortex mode, which I never really use, but let's do it. Kind of one of those gimmick shots, but the main thing with the vortex shot that you need to keep in mind is that the actual lens is in alignment with the handle. So we can see that the lens is pretty much in alignment with the handle. And if we tilt it this way, it's slightly higher than the handle, which means that it's going to be slightly off axis. But you just have to keep that in mind. If you can get the lens as close to here as possible, then you're going to get a really, really nice vortex effect. And now the final thing I want to test is running. When you're slow, it's really easy to be smooth, much harder when you actually are running and stuff.
Now let's dive into the menu system. It's okay. It feels like There's way too many buttons considering this is for, I would say, a beginner market. Like experienced users will love it because there's a ton of different settings. But I think for the beginners out there, then a simple just like low, medium, high option would have been so much easier rather than giving like full control of everything.
Seems pretty smooth. I mean, it looks all right. The arms are really thin. The start of it turning, like you have to initiate the turn, and then like that's the part where you're going to start recording after you've initiated. You can't like start, and then if you're going to start turning, you can't, it just all of a sudden goes like boom to the side. Like it's like lag, and then it's not as smooth to pick up.
Now I don't have the Sling Mode 2.5 adapter for this actual gimbal, but I have used it on a lot of the other Zhiyun gimbals. And let me tell you, like, absolute game changer. It feels super weird at first, especially that wrist rest, but after you start using it for a while, you realize that it takes a lot of the weight off your wrist and transfers it to your forearm. So then you can just shoot for way long without getting fatigued as quickly. Now I know a lot of people don't like the fact that a lot of gimbals now have a built-in battery and you can't swap it out, but with a solid 16-hour battery life, like you don't have to worry about gimbals running out of battery anymore. It's just no longer a thing. Like just sporadically put it on charge whenever. If you've got a big shoot, then put it on charge night before. But generally I just kind of grab this out and just use it and it just kind of works. Like it just always seems to have battery, which is so good. So now all in all, at just $249, the Weebill 3E is lightweight, portable, and perfect for traveling. Sure, it's not without its quirks, but for the price, like it is punching well above its weight, and it's not bad for a compact gimbal you can just chuck in your bag if you want to hit the road or go traveling.